what we love to do on a Wednesday night. Western Province Sports and GT Masters, where iRacing in South Africa actually started off. Coming to you live from the second year production studios down here in Belflegen in the friendly city of Cape Town, the exact same place that will be hosting the first round of Extreme Festival for 2023 down at Kalani International Raceway on Saturday. Joining me in the studio, Mike Side, as always, the voice of West Province Motorsport, Frankie Hiernes. Good evening to you.
Gary, good evening. Everybody else at home, good evening.
And to the man from Joost Stasi that's going to be doing a bit of a sabbatical out of South Africa in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to lose him to motorsport in South Africa for a couple of months. FC Nieuwoud. FC, good day to you.
Good day, Gary. Good day, Frankie. It's lovely to be back in the studio.
So today with West Province Sports and GT Masters, season number 8, Frankie, and it's Indianapolis, and it's the, what shall we call it, the short circuit, in-circuit of the oval that's been used?
It's the road course.
It's actually called the Grand Prix circuit.
Yes, they've had the US Grand Prix here before. So we come to you from the city of Indianapolis, from the state of Indiana, and the track is 3.85 k's long at an altitude of 221 meters above sea level. Temperature outside is 19, track temperature is 33.
All right, let's see who is out on track right now. The likes of Robbie Teens we see out there on circuit. Robbie Teens is the man from Team Bolt. Also, let's see if we can get him up on screen. There we go. That be the man himself, Robbie Teens. Eugene Manouk joining us with the beautiful livery, I must say, that red, white and black, looking very, very nice in the Denso colors. And then back, having done family duty, is Timothy Stanton.
Yes, Timothy with that number 15 car with the Golf livery on it. And then we've got Suisse Joubert out there with a Dell outfit. That's the Dell Computers. Raymond Duggan in the 71. All the drivers FC in the DALLARA P217 LMP2 sports cars.
Yeah, same make and model of all the cars out there. The DALLARA LMP2s. Willem Botha working his way around the circuit there. And then in those lovely Jordan colors, that is Peter Joubert that's working his way around the circuit until he puts up a time. First of the times do go up. Johan Fourie goes fastest with a 1:16.324. Willem Pinaar was right there behind him as Peter Joubert knocks him down as he goes second fastest in the 777.
Jan Spalmer sitting there in that third position. He's a second off Johan Fourie. There's a 17 car coming through there. And that is Luc Lucchesi. Luc Lucchesi with that very different color scheme on that LMP2 of his. As Willem Botha sitting out there in that third position. Currently 0.4 of a second off Fourie.
Yeah, Peter Joubert currently holds the fourth fastest time out there in the 777. He is 0.7 of a second down from Fourie out there in that fourth position. Spalmers currently finds himself in fifth with Suisse Joubert, Willem Pinaar, Robbie Teens and Raymond Duggan, the man you see on your screen right now in the 71. He currently sits there in a ninth position, but a whopping 1.6 seconds off the pace from pace setter Johan Fourie.
Raymond Duggan out there in P9 provisionally so far with that 71 car in 9th position, 1.6 off Johan Fourie. Timothy Stanton in car number 15 sitting out there so far in P10, 1.768 off Johan Fourie. A personal best there for Peter Joubert, Jaco Steyn and Johan Engelbrecht, as well as Raymond Duggan and Ian Riddle.
Yeah, Ian Riddle just popped up on the board there in that 13th position, knocks down Herman Lazarus and Leonardo Beccari, as most of the guys are out there trying to improve on their times. Robbie Teens gets a drop down by Timothy Stanton, who slots out there in that 8th position. Suisse Joubert currently out there in 6th position, and Rainier Joubert in a 14th, 2.8 seconds off the pace from Johan Fourie.
Camel livery there on Rainier Joubert's car, 2.8 off Fourie. Herman Lazarus currently sitting there in that 15th position, 3.1 off Fourie. Last lap, a 119.787. for the man from cheapercars.co.za. That's Herman Lazarus, occupying that 15th position for now in that blue and white color Dallara P217. Eugene Manouk currently in that 17th position as the cars work their way around. And 5 minutes done, and currently Fourie and Lucchesi so far lock up the front row.
Somebody else that's just come to join us, that man on screen, hasn't put up a time yet, Michael Stephen.
Michael Stephen. I was just going to ask, where's Graham Stephen? I don't see that name out there. But Michael Stephen, a legend in circuit, main circuit racing and karting throughout South Africa. Multiple karting champion and multiple production car champion. Raced for the Audi team for Terry Moss a couple of years ago.
Well, quite a few of the guys already having done their 2 laps. Remember what the system does, it allows you 1 warm-up lap and then basically 2 flying laps to get your time out there. So I have a feeling towards the end of the session we might see quite a bit of a quiet track out there, as most of the guys already did their laps right at the beginning of this session, as we ride on board here with Michael Stephen. Attempting his first run to put a time up on the board. Johan Engelbrecht is still out there. There goes Michael Stephen, 5th fastest, knocking down quite a few drivers down the pecking order as Jan Sparmers gets relegated down to 6th.
And some big names at that, Frankie. Jan Sparmers, Swys Hubert, Jaco Steyn, Timothy Stanton, Willem Pina rounding out the top 10. They're already in the pits. And the only people that are still out on circuit, Michael Stephen, having put 1 lap in so far. He's now busy with his 2nd lap. Given that it's 1 minute 16, there's 7 minutes 16 that is gone, so there will be enough time for him to put in another lap. Should everything go well, he might even go up onto the 2nd row of the grid.
I was going to say, don't write Michael Stephen off. We haven't seen too much of Michael Stephen in the iRacing Masters Series or in iRacing in general, but we know what this man is capable of. I've commentated on him for many years when he raced karts and circuit racing. So if he is as good at this as what he is at karting and normal racing, I think he will be in that top 3, top 4 there. P4 for Michael Stephen.
Yeah, it pops it up onto the 2nd row of the grid, pretty much what we expected. That's his 2 laps that's completed. He's one of only 2 people that are still out on circuit. The only other person out on circuit who has now completed his time. He's on his way back into the pits or the pit wall, one of the 2. And he's on his way back. That is Eugene Manouk. So Michael Stephen still getting a little bit of extra. Ooh, the guy is just sliding it around. So, Frankie, that then means provisionally pretty much cut and dusted. It's not going to change from here with 8 minutes 30 done. Johan Fourie and Luc Lucchesi, the 2 old war horses on the front row of the grid.
Yeah, but Lucchesi is only 300ths of a second off Fourie's pole time. So that's not done yet. Fourie is in pit lane. Let's have a look and see if Lucchesi has completed his time.
Yep.
Right, here comes Michael Stephen. Will he bump Puerta down?
Front row?
No, Michael Stephen stays in P4.
No front row for him whatsoever. So 9 minutes is down. He was the last man out on circuit. Johan Fourie, and well, there he stands ready to go out, but he hasn't gone out again. He's done enough. He's on the front row of the grid. Everybody else has already retired their cars in. I see Swys Hubert is also there standing ready to go out as well. So 18 entries we've got. This is season number 8 of the West Province Sports and GT Masters. We're coming to you from the Indianapolis Speedway. And, well, iconic stuff. You'd think if you print out a map of the Indianapolis Speedway FC that it's going to have iconic names. Nope. Turns 1 through to 12.
Well, look, this is currently the 3rd oldest racetrack purpose-built racetrack in the world. It was constructed out in 1909. It was only the second permanent racetrack out in the US after Brooklands. But the circuit that they'll be racing on today was only built in 2000, that inner Grand Prix road course that runs on the inside and sections of the oval. But yeah, the Americans not big on big fancy names. It's turn 1, 2, 3, 4, right up to where we finished back at turn 14. But let's have a look at the grid. Johan Fourie on pole with Luke Lucchesi lining up alongside him.
Yes, row 2, Willem Botha, Michael Steven. Row 3, Pieter Joubert, Jan Sparmers. Row 4, Space Joubert, Jaco Steyn. And row 5, Timothy Stanton and Willem Pinaar.
Row number 6 sees Robbie Teings and Raymond Duggan lining up alongside each other, with Johan Engelbrecht and Ian Riddle on row number 7, with Reinier Joubert, Herman Lazarus, Leonardo Bakari and Eugene Minuk rounding off your top field, the whole field actually.
Yeah, 18 cars, 9 rows, 45 minutes of action here at Indianapolis International Motor Speedway, doing the road course today. And the front row is Johan Fourie, Luke Lucchesi, Willem Botha, Michael Steven. If all goes according to plan, and it usually doesn't, they should be your top 4 at the checkered flag. But I want to give them the commentator's curse. Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Michael Steven only now coming up onto the grid. And once again, we see Johan Engelbrecht that's battling to get onto the grid. That's that position that is open, and that be alongside Raymond Duggan. And then just ahead of the yellow car of Reinier Joubert. So he's the only one that's not linked in to the system yet.
Yeah, Johan usually takes a bit of time to get onto the go. There he comes now. And we are ready to get this race underway at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the first ever racetrack to be called a speedway. Let's see what happens here. The light bar is at the top of the screen. You can see it there. Are they going to do a rolling start? Okay, it's going to be a rolling start. There they go. Get off the line, do a bit of a warm-up lap, or a warm-up lap, and then we are ready to get racing going here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway and on the Grand Prix road course.
Did something happen to Ian Riddle? I think he might have just made contact with the back of somebody. Nope, it looks all fine from there. So the computer picked something up but didn't want to tell us exactly what it was. So off the line they come, and it's Johan Fourie that's going to be on the front end of the grid. Luke Lucchesi with that multicolored car that's running in that second position. He will come up alongside Johan Fourie. But Frankie, you actually spoke earlier on when we were watching the practice session about turn number 1. So difficult to see and so tight. You can't go in there two abreast. It's not going to work.
Yeah, during the practice we were riding aboard with Johan Fourie for a while, and literally turn 1 sneaks up on you. It's a 90-degree right-hander, and there's a tire wall to show that it's there. You've got to turn right, but you literally got to guess where that 90-degree right-hander is. So it could be a bit of a problem, and it could catch a couple of guys out on the opening lap.
These guys are getting very anxious to get this race going here from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Johan Fourie, Luke Lucchesi actually dropping back a little bit to try and get a bit of a longer run down that main straight there as they work their way around the circuit, they're on the infield section at the moment, working their way back to the oval. Being led there by Johan Fourie in the number 14 Monster Energy car. Luke Lucchesi just keeping an ever-present position there next to Fourie to let him know I'm right here. But they've got to watch out for Willem Botha and Michael Steven that were coming off that second row.
Right, so they move on to the banked oval. Pretty soon they'll be moving on to the banked oval. They actually are on the banked oval now, coming out of turn number 10 onto the banked oval, and then they'll go back into turn 12, which is back into the infield section, which will take them into turn 13. That's turn 12 they're going through now.
Very difficult corner that.
Heading into turn 13, and then from there that is turn number 14 as a safety car pulls off into pit lane. Back onto the speedway they go. FC, we are about to go racing.
Yeah, waiting for those lights to go green. Let's have a look and see what happens. Johan Free puts his foot down. He races down the main straight. The green lights go on and boogity, boogity, boogity. We are racing in Indianapolis with Johan Free that leads them down the main straight into turn number 1. He's pulled away from Lucchesi. Lucchesi sitting there is at second place ahead of Willem Botha and Michael Steven. There's a position swapping happening down the field. Raymond Duggan and Robbie Teagues. But look at how that top 3 is pulling away from the field.
And they all made it through turn number 1. Somehow, someway, they made it through turn number 1 with Fourie sitting out there in P1, Lucchesi in second, Botha in third, Michael Steven, Jan Spalmers, that's got his nose ahead there of Peter Hubert as they make their way down the back straight and into turn 7.
Yeah, into turn 7 they go. It's Fourie that leads him. He does a bit of grass cutting as he gets onto that rumble strip there, being chased down there by Luke Lucchesi. Lucchesi starting to apply pressure there on Fourie. Then it's Botha, Steven, then Jan Spalmers. He's got a bit of an issue as he goes and does a bit of gardening out there, loses the position to Peter Hubert, and is now going to get under attack there from Suez Hubert. Hubert gets through up on the inside as they go into those final 2 quarters.
Yeah, turn number 13, they're working their way through now, heading towards turn 14, which will take them back onto the speedway. There is Suez Hubert. Jan Spalmers behind him. We'll get the intervals up now to see how close these drivers are with each other and the battle box as well. Have a look at that. Suez Hubert sitting out there in P6, and he's got them racked and stacked all the way to P13. In there behind him, Lucchesi at this stage of the game is fighting to keep Willem Botha and Michael Steven at bay. Meantime, Johan Fourie is nearly a second ahead of Luke Lucchesi.
Yeah, the field actually starting to spread out quite quickly here in this race on lap number 2. Fourie almost a second ahead, Lucchesi almost a second ahead there of Willem Botha. Then Michael Stevens starting to get closer and closer to the back there of Botha. But here is Robbie Teagues out there in that 11th position. He's being chased down by Johan Engelbrecht. Engelbrecht not allowing Robbie Teagues to get away from him just yet.
Yeah, Pienaar and Duggan is also having a good fight out there for Duggan's, should I say, for Pienaar's 9th position. Michael Stevens sitting out there in P4. He's 0.5 of a second just behind Willem Botha that you see there ahead of him, and they're beginning to get away from the 777 of Peter Hubert that sits in P5, and the fastest lap out there on lap number 3 goes to Johan Fourie with a 1:16.484.
Well, the interesting thing we spoke about earlier, Frankie, and it's way too early to start talking about it now, but they started on 60 litres of fuel, and that gives us an estimation of around about 35 minutes. Oh, Robbie Teagues makes a big mistake, runs it wide, loses a whole bunch of positions there to Engelbrecht and Reinier Hubert.
Yeah, now he's going to come into the clutches of Herman Lazarus and Leonardo Beccari as well. But it's all about Johan Fourie, 1.2 seconds ahead of Luke Lucchesi. There is Suez Hubert. He's in that 7th position. He's chasing down Jan Spalmers. That's there in P6. And Timothy Stanton is coming with Suez Hubert as well. And they are racing for that Spalmers 6th position.
There was a big overtake there by Michael Steven, and Willem Botha lost a position. He lost another one, this time to Peter Hubert. And let's have a look there. He's still on the circuit, so couldn't have been too big a mistake, but it did cost him 2 positions at the end of it as he lost out there to Michael Steven and Peter. Oh, well, he went gardening.
Yeah, he did a bit of agricultural work there as he comes through, does Peter Hubert in that 777. So behind him is Willem Botha, and the reason why is because he did that farming. So we go into turn number 1 there with the 777 of Peter Hubert. But back to the man that sits there in 2nd position, Luke Lucchesi. He's just under 0.7 of a second behind Johan Fourie. That sits out here in P1. Here's a replay of the 22 car of Suez Hubert going into turn number 1. Bounces over the curbs. You don't want to do that in a LMP2 sports car.
Yeah, that completely messes up your tyres there, but Luca Chiesi is clearly showing intent here, having put up the fastest lap with the previous lap, hunting down the likes of the RB Humphrey, riding on board with Suez Hubert. Let's have a look here. This will be that incident going over the curb once again. Yeah, there he goes. It launches him into the air and just completely throws you off and puts you into a sideways spin.
Right, here we go. Back to the fight for first and second. 5 minutes into this race. Coming around to start another lap. Johan Fourie and Luc Lequesi. 5/10 of a second between P1 and P2. They're getting away here from... Well, let's have a look and see if they're getting away from Michael Stephen. Yeah, they're both faster than Stephen on that last lap. So Michael Stephen 1:16.818 on that last lap. As whoa, that's Jaco Steyn that turns it around there, going into that right hand. I think that might be turn 1.
Yeah, it came on very hot into that corner, and that cost him at the end of it. It was too hard on the brakes. It brought the tail end of that Dallara all the way around, and that ended up costing him quite bad in that one. Riding on board here with Willem Botha, currently sitting in that 5th position, chasing down Peter Hubert. He's all over the back of that Jordan-coloured Dallara as they work their way around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Botha desperately would like to get back ahead of Hubert to try and chase down Michael Stephen, but Peter Hubert is Mr. Consistency himself.
Yes, Peter just sitting out there, but he's been hassled heavily here by Willem Botha. 3/10 of a second between them as we hop on board here with Raymond Duggan sitting there in P9. 4/10 of a second between himself and Pienaar. That's in P8 in the 57 car. So he's all over that rear wing there of Pienaar's car. Is Duggan. In that 71 for RAD Racing is Raymond Duggan in that 9th position. Down the home straight they go and working their way towards turn 1.
Yeah, into turn 1 they are going to go now. Hard on the brakes they go. Turn hard onto that 90-degree right-hander. Now it sort of cuts back to that left-hander. Going to try and get his nose up there. Not close enough. Now he moves back to the closer to the back bumper there of Willem Pienaar is Raymond Duggan. He's all over him, applying the pressure. Is he going to place himself correctly? No. Pienaar defends quite heavily.
You ride aboard here with RAD Racing's Raymond Duggan, car number 71, sitting there in that 9th position. 2/10 of a second between himself and Willem Pienaar. Pienaar in that Castrol and Panasonic outfit, LMP2, that's a Dallara P217, as he's fighting hard to hold on to that 8th position.
It looks like Eugene Manouk is stuck somewhere along the circuit in the final corner in car number in the 17th position, but out there on the circuit there is a big battle going on between the two that we just saw. There we go, Manouk planting it, doing a bit of farming, and then decides to go to the banked oval corner.
Right, Raymond Duggan coming through, putting a lap there on Manouk as he just keeps out the way to let these guys get through. Duggan out there for RAD Racing. Just ahead of him is Pienaar. Just ahead of Pienaar is Timothy Stanton, as a matter of fact. So, Willem Botha, car number 12, right on the case of the 777 of Peter Hubert, fighting it out there for P4 with 4/10 of a second between the two of them.
Yeah, close battle between the two of them, but there's a closer battle happening here between Pienaar and Duggan. Duggan all over Willem Pienaar. He's right up, tucked in underneath that back wing. Now they get into the back markers. They defend heavily as Pienaar getting shunted there a little bit by Duggan. But up on the inside goes Duggan. There's contact between them, but Willem Pienaar just survives that onslaught.
Yeah, and Lazarus was in the way of that lot. Somehow he escaped being shunted off the circuit. But they are closing up on Timothy Stanton. There's 1.8 between Pienaar and Stanton. As a matter of fact, Pienaar and Duggan was a lot closer to Stanton before they picked up the Herman Lazarus car. So down the back main they go. Cars farming. Is that Stanton? Yes, Timothy Stanton was on the grass there for a short while.
I'm pretty sure Stanton's got these live streamers somewhere playing, and he heard his name and he messed it up as Eugene Manouk goes and does a bit of farming again in the Orlan Alfa Romeo color schemed Dallara. But yeah, Timothy Stanton, that's overshot that second to last corner, and just that's going to cost him because he's got Duggan and Pienaar right there with him.
So that's going to be a heck of a fight. Oh, trouble out there for Johan Engelbrecht in the 99 car. He'll lose the ground heavily there. So Duggan having problems, Engelbrecht having problems, all of them having issues out there. This is a replay for the 71 car, and that's Duggan. Well, he made a move there on Stanton and then just lost the tail end.
And then he beached himself.
Yeah.
That's not something you want to do with these low cars. That's going to be a jump to pits, and that's going to cost you a lot of time. It's already dropped him down to 16th position as he had to go back to the pits. And I have a feeling that's what happened to Eugene Minuk earlier as well. He got the car beached and just couldn't get it moving again. Herman Lazarus currently in that 18th position, having a bit of a horrid time out there. But right behind him, we've got Reinier Hubert and Robbie Teings battling it out there for that 9th and 10th and 11th positions between those guys. A lovely fight out there between Hubert and Robbie Teings. If he can get a move up and get closer to these guys, then he might be part of that fight.
Yeah, Timothy Stanton on the other end is Mo. Jan Sparmers just made a move on Pienaar. On Botha. I just saw the leaderboard chop around, and that's the reason why Willem Botha temporary there off the circuit.
Yeah, Willem Botha, and then let's have a look here what happened to Jan Sparmers in the number 8. Not much apparently. Willem Botha getting it all wrong, getting it onto the curb, and that sends him into the kitty litter, and almost making contact there with the other car. Sparmers out there, but this man not putting a foot wrong. At one stage it looked like Lucchesi was chasing him down, but now he's managed to pull a almost 1.5 second gap ahead there of Luke Lucchesi.
But I mustn't forget about Michael Steven. That man you see in picture there. There's only 2.5 seconds between Steven and Luke Lucchesi. Here comes Pieter Hubert and Jan Sparmers. Well, he made the move there on Botha when Botha went to do a bit of agricultural work, and he took that position away from Willem Botha, and Willem Botha fighting right back here at Jan Sparmers.
Yeah, Sparmers getting attacked there by Botha. Botha getting past to move up into that 5th position. Now Swys Hubert is right there behind the 22. Reinier Hubert right there behind the 22 of Swys Hubert. As let's have a look here. What's happening here? This is the number 1 of Robbie Teings starting to get closer and closer to that pack ahead of him. Ian Riddle currently finds himself out there in that 12th position, and in 13th, Leonardo Bakari.
But there's a fight for P1. Look at Luke Lucchesi. Only 9/10 of a second between himself and Johan Fourie, with 12 minutes and 40 seconds done in this one so far. Luke Lucchesi for Race Driver SA and Pantera Racing in that 2nd position, making life very awkward for Johan Fourie.
Yeah, Fourie managing that situation at this stage of the fight. The two of them battling it out there for 1st and 2nd between Fourie and Lucchesi. Lucchesi getting closer and closer every now and again, and then Johan just stretches the legs on the Dallara. He seems to like this car. He's very comfortable out in this car. Every time we see the two of them out there, it's very, very equal between the two of them.
Yeah, Lucchesi was nearly 5/10 of a second quicker than Johan Fourie on that previous lap. So Luke Lucchesi has got missile lock there on the Johan Fourie Dallara as they make their way through turn number 7. Through turn 7 they go through turn 8 and 9, heading towards turn 10, which will take them onto the banked oval for a short while. There's Timothy Stanton, and he is closing up on the 57 car of Willem Pienaar. Only 7/10 of a second between Pienaar and Stanton.
Yeah, Stanton and Pienaar battling it out there for that 7th and 8th position, as it's very, very close. Timothy Stanton getting closer and closer to Pienaar after making that mistake earlier and losing those positions. He would love to get back at it. Leonardo Bakari, he finds himself there in that 14th position, chasing down Jack Hussein. But here comes a move from Stanton. Up on the inside of Pienaar goes Timothy Stanton to retake that position.
And Stanton goes up into P7, gets his nose ahead of Pienaar. now demoting him down to P8. Let's have a look-see. Oh, Timothy Stanton nearly overshooting that left-hander, but manages to hold on to it. Onto the speedway they go, down that home straight, racing towards turn number 1. Stanton, when he crossed the line, he was 5/10 of a second ahead of Willem Pienaar as they make their way towards turn 1.
Yeah, into turn 1 they go, and it's Stanton that now starts to pull away from Pienaar. Pienaar was completely caught unaware with that one, lost that position. He's got no answer to try and come back at Timothy Stanton, as immediately he starts to pull a gap there on him. 1.2 seconds already there for Timothy Stanton as he now chases down Young Palmers.
Only real fight at this point in time is the fight for the lead. This is Jaco Steyn having a look up on the inside. I think that's Leonardo Bakari.
That's correct.
That he made the move on, and that's the overtaking maneuver there, Steyn on Bakari.
So Johan Fourie that leads them out very, very neatly, doing what he does best. But the only man that he can't shake is that man directly behind him. The man's called Mr. Luke Lucchesi.
Yeah. We can call him the Italian stallion, Luke Lucchesi, for Pantera Racing and Race Driver SA. Yeah, he'd love that, that's for sure. Luke Lucchesi, definitely.
It's an improvement from the cheese man.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey,
Mike?
well, I must say, Mrs. Lucchesi, I'm sure you are enjoying the racing, and yes, Luke is doing a lovely job out there. FC only refers to him as the cheese man on a bad day. On a day like this, he's Mr. Luke Lucchesi, the chap.
Always the Italian stallion.
Yep, that can work as well. Undoubtedly very, very quick out there, taking on the likes of Johan Fourie. Not easy. If anybody that can do it, it is this man, Luke Lucchesi, and he just doesn't know when to stop pushing. He just keeps on pushing all the time. There is no, okay, I've got to second, I've got a bit of a gap here on the Michael Stephen, I'm doing very well. Nope, he's got missile lock on that man up front.
He's got missile lock, but Frankie, have a look there. Willem Pienaar seems to be going backwards. After being overtaken there by Timothy Stanton, he just lost a position there to Swayze Hubert as well, dropping down to 9th. So, yeah, something doesn't seem to be gelling as well there for Willem Pienaar, as we see somebody else going off the circuit.
Johan Engelbrecht on the 99 car.
There's the move that Timothy Stanton did on Pienaar. So ever since this move happened, it just seemed to go backwards and backwards for Pienaar, and all of a sudden the pace just dropped off on that Castrol car.
So we're right aboard once again with Luke Lucchesi. You were talking about a whole lot of understeer, oversteer there on the Lucchesi Dallara. We're talking about Lucchesi early on, that's keeping Michael Stephen at bay, keeping in mind that Luke Lucchesi once upon a time raced karts against Michael Stephen. So Johan, Luke and Michael know each other very, very well from karting days.
Yeah, very, very well-known drivers to one another, but Michael Stephen's going to have to pick up the pace if he wants to be a part of that fight at the front, as Fourie starts to pull a gap on Lucchesi once again. It's over a second now, and Lucchesi over 8 seconds ahead there of Michael Stephen in that third position as somebody goes off the circuit again. Then behind them in that fourth position will be the Hubert, but we are riding on board with Jaco Steyn down in 13th position. He's chasing down Ian Riddle. That's the car directly ahead of him. He's going to try and make a move there on Riddle, but Riddle's going to make that Dallara pretty wide.
Oh, that's going into turn number 7. This is a replay of Engelbrecht. It was he that was off the circuit early on in that exact position. That's a replay of it. And that was the 99 car that we saw on the circuit. Johan Engelbrecht in car 99.
These cars seem to be like on a knife edge almost. When it goes well, it goes pretty well, but the moment you lose it, it's gone. There's almost zero chance of trying to save it as the Topo Pilota's car there of Eugene Manuka goes off the circuit. Let's have a look here what happened. Trainier Hubert, he just got those wheels out onto the grass, sent it into a slide, and that'll cost you a whole heap of time.
Yes, he was chasing down Pienaar there. This is Jaco Steyn, Gazoo Racing, car number 88. Coming through that left-hander, and just wobbles underneath him as he continues on his way for Toyota Gazoo Racing. There's a car in pit lane as we saw the replay.
Yeah, that is Johan Engelbrecht. I think he picked up a bit of problems there. It's way too early for it to be the routine pit stop. We spoke about, we started speaking about it earlier, that we'll start seeing the pit stops happen around about the 35-minute mark with the 60 litres of fuel that they started on. But that is literally how close it is. Half a second between Fourie and Lucchesi. That's looking back from Johan Fourie's bumper as Lucchesi has made up half a second once again.
Well, this is what it's all about. The three old war horses sitting first, second and third, but it's all on between Fourie and Lucchesi at this point in time. Michael Stevens nearly 8 seconds behind them. He's got a semi-comfortable gap on Peter Hubert, 5.2 between Michael and Peter. But it's all about these two gents, you see, working their way around into, I think that is turn number... that was turn number 13.
13, yeah. Frankie, I love how you call them the two old war horses in the Sports and GT Master Series. They're probably one of the younger guns out there amongst the Masters.
Yeah,
they're old war horses when they race against the youngsters.
Yeah, but what I mean is when it comes to years of experience, the amount of years that these two gentlemen have been racing, they've been racing since the age of 8, 9. Johan, Luke and Michael for that matter.
Willem Botha just not having his way out there this evening again in the Dallara, getting it off the circuit ever so slightly, then gets it onto the rumble strip. Johan Fourie leads them out there, not getting away from Lucchesi, but also not allowing Lucchesi to get too close to be a major threat at this stage of the fight. But while the two of them are doing that, Michael Stephen is slowly but surely starting to chip away at that gap.
Yeah, we've got to keep in mind that Michael doesn't do all the races and he has a bit of fun wherever he can. Here's Willem Botha in car number 12, making his way through. He's 3.5 seconds behind Peter Hubert. Jan Spalmers, he's 4 seconds behind Willem Botha. There's Johan, there's Jan in car number 8. And he is 15 seconds ahead of Timothy Stanton in the golf car in P7.
Yeah, Timothy Stanton out there in that 7th position. He is almost 4 seconds ahead of this man, Swayze Hubert, who in turn is 2.7 seconds ahead there of Willem Pinaar, who is really battling it out there today. Rainier Hubert is another 3 seconds down the road from Pinaar, but he is 12 seconds ahead of Robbie Teens.
Yeah, Robbie Teens there in car number 1, sitting in P11, and then there's 16.4 seconds between himself and Ian Riddle. Jaco Steyn is in the pit lane in the 88 car, but back to these two, 0.6 of a second between P1 and P2 for Fourie and Lucchesi.
Yeah, the two of them just making sure that there's at least one yellow interval out there on the leaderboard as Johan Fourie drops back into the clutches there of Lucchesi ever so slightly as they come up to the back end there of Ian Riddle. Is Ian Riddle going to block? He keeps to his line. That's now going to drop Lucchesi right onto that back bumper. Stays out of the way this time around, and through comes Fourie and Lucchesi just being able to squeeze through on the inside there of Ian Riddle.
Had a chat earlier on today with Luke Lucchesi. He says 60 litres, not 70, 60 litres of fuel tonight. We should put the pit stops at around 35 minutes. 35 minutes, according to my quick calculation, between laps.
Oh, Fourie gets it wrong. Sorry, Gary, I apologize for that one.
That's a biggie. And that means between lap 25 and lap 27. Let's have a look at that Johan Fourie incident, because that is the leader, was the leader, should I say. Mr. Luke Lucchesi in that 2nd position.
That tail end just broke
What a weird
away.
way for that car to just snap away from him like that.
That tail end just broke away on the 14 car, and you probably find that Johan is sitting in his sim rig saying, how the hell did this just happen? Because he's braking where he normally brakes.
Looks like he might have gotten a bit too close to the wall.
Could be.
I think that he might have changed the brake balance as the race has gone, and with the gearing down and the up brake balance on the back wheels, I think the two together is what made the back end turn around. But that's all speculation. We'll have to take it from there So our new leader is Luke Lucchese.
But guys, with all of this happening, look what's happened now with Michael Stephen is in pit lane. I was just going to say he's closing up on Fourie for obvious reasons, and then Michael Stephen makes his way into pit lane, and trouble here for Willem Pienaar, also going into turn 1.
Yeah, Willem Pienaar really having a horrid time out there. Michael Stephen in the pit lane, heading out of the pits now. No, he's only going into pit lane now. But a long pit lane entrance there. That's going to cost you quite a bit of time. Yeah, Michael Stephen actually had the perfect opportunity to take the fight to Fourie, unless he's deciding to fill it up now and not having to worry about it a little bit later. So interesting strategy coming here from Michael Stephen.
Yeah, so Johan Fourie, 5.3 behind Luke Lucchese. That's the 9 car of Riddle. He is a lap down on the 2 leaders. Here is Raymond Duggan in that 15th position, but he's nearly 41 seconds behind Jaco Steyn.
Yeah, Jaco Steyn out there in that 40th position as Raymond Duggan gets posted off onto the green stuff. Luckily keeps it out of the wall, but he's not going to be too happy with that one.
Escorted out the way.
Dunk. There you go.
Yeah, there was accidental contact made there, and Duggan finds himself right up against the wall, deep into the farmlands.
Yeah, and that's not a place where these Dallaras like to be. You can see how stiff that chassis is, the suspension, everything, and it's quite easy to get beached out there. We've seen it with a couple of the other drivers, how easy it is to beach yourself. But back to reality, Raymond Duggan out there in that 15th position, and you can see he's completely lost the rhythm now.
Yeah, now let's have a look and see. There you just saw Fourie on the top right hand side of your screen. He's just over 5 seconds behind Luke Lucchese. 5.2 as a matter of fact. Let's see if he can claw that one back. If I was Johan Fourie, I'll do what I do best. Hit pit lane now. And hopefully leapfrog Lucchese when Lucchese comes and makes his pit stop. But yeah, we'll have to see what these two decide they're going to do.
Last lap time there for Luke Lucchese, a 17 flat and a 17.2 by Johan Fourie. So Luke Lucchese actually got the hammer down at this stage of the fight and actually opening up a bit of space, a 17.03. Oh, Johan Fourie has come to play. Look at that, a 16.851.
Yeah, that car doesn't seem very happy going into that turn number 1, that 90-degree right-hander.
That's where the mistake happened.
Yeah, it tended to wag its tail there a bit as Ian Riddle works his way down pit lane.
Yeah, Riddle out into the pit lane there in the number 9 car. Jan Sparmers in the 5th place. He is trying to chase down Willem Botha to try and make up a position there. He is 2.3 seconds behind the number 12 car of Botha. But Michael Stephen, after his pit stop, he's dropped down to 10th. It'll be interesting to see where he can falter, if he's managed to leapfrog anybody with this early pit stop.
That was around about 25 minutes that he, or the 25-minute mark when he went into pit lane. So Ian Riddle is making his way out of the pits as Michael Stephen comes storming past. Behind him, 3.1, you can see the number 1 car of Robbie Teens sitting out there in that 11th position behind Michael Stephen. There's Michael Stephen working his way through, and there's the 1 car of the Teen Boltman. That's Robbie Teens, 3.8 between Stephen and Teens.
Robbie Teens will try to catch up to them, but 27 seconds down the road is that man Leonardo Bakari working his way down the main straight in car number 4, and he is another 32 seconds ahead of Jaco Steyn. Steyn having had his hands full out there in the 88 car this evening as well. Then 25 seconds down the road, that's where you find Ian Riddle out in 14th position, and he sits ahead of Raymond Duggan.
Duggan in the car 71 for RAD Racing, or RAD Racing, sitting in that 15th position. And then 46 seconds behind him in P16 is the 69 car of Herman Lazarus of cheapercars.co.za. And then a minute and 1 seconds behind him, and just done a personal best, is Johan Engelbrecht with a 119.164.
The interesting thing, Frankie,
Lucchesi,
as
pit lane.
Lucchesi goes into the pit lane. Let's see where he falters out, as Fourie is now going to reclaim the lead of this race, but he's going to have to dive into the pits as well pretty soon. But what I was about to say, Frankie, we've seen in some of the other cars how the drivers have improved in the 8 seasons that we've had the racing. And some people, I've heard some people made comments, oh, our racing seems so easy. But this just brings it back, as Jan Sparmers dives into the pit lane as well. This just brings back the notion of how difficult iRacing actually still is. You can have loads of experience, and somebody like Herman Lazarus, Raymond Duggan, Robbie Teams would be struggling to work their way up, even in something as this, the Dallara LMP2.
Look, it's not that easy. A lot of people think it is that easy, but this internet racing, or esports as it's known as Lucchesi works his way out of the pits, is not that easy. It's as close as, damn it, to the real thing.
100%. Right, so Lucchesi has pitted. He came out in that 6th position, ahead there of Willem Pinaar, as Jan Sparmers now works his way out to the pits as well. Michael Steven works his way back into that 8th position. Let's have a look. The front 5 cars need to pit still, and we'll have to see where they slot back out in the grand scheme of things when they've done their pit stops.
Remember, Luc Lucchesi was the man that was leading initially, and I think it's going to still be Luc when the rest of the guys have gone in and come back out again. Willem Botha dives into the pits.
Yeah, Botha in the pits. That will promote Pieter Joubert up to 2nd. But remember that Johan, Pieter, Timothy Swice and Willem Pinaar have not made pit stops yet.
The interesting thing is we actually saw damage happen to Johan Fourie's car after that, but managing to maintain that speed and those lap times after that impact that he had there, to sit there at the lead of this race after that impact. Let's see where he will filter back out after his pit stop, as Luc Lucchesi starts working his way through the field. Willem Botha's in there, Leonardo Bakari dives into the pits, and
Pinaar
also goes into pit lane.
Yeah, so does Willem Botha, but he's making his way out, and that's promoted Michael Steven into that 6th position. So let's see where Michael can take this from here, because Johan Fourie is in pits. Johan Fourie is in pit lane.
So the Monster Energy Dallara of Johan Fourie is now in pit lane, and this is where it all boils down to. Who is going to come out where? Pieter Joubert should be coming down the main straight pretty soon, as he works his way through the final quarter, but no, he goes into pit lane as well. So that leaves Timothy Stanton. What is Stanton going to do? This is a lot earlier than the 35 minutes that they predicted. Stanton goes into the pit lane as well, and he brings with him Swice Joubert as well as Robbie Teams.
So watch out now for Luc Lucchesi. He will just work his way through, and will he get that lead again? Remember that Johan Fourie is still in the pits, and that will be easy for Luc Lucchesi to go back into P1. Where's Fourie? Here he comes, and it is Lucchesi that leads going into turn 1, with Fourie in that 2nd position.
Easy pickings out there for Lucchesi, as he's already starting to accelerate away from 2nd place. Johan Fourie. Michael Steven is now into that 3rd position. Hasn't done enough to catch up to Johan Fourie as such, but he's got a bit of a gap between himself and Willem Botha.
Pieter Joubert making his way out of the pits, and so is Robbie Teams in car number 1, making his way out. And Pieter will jump in there in P6. Here comes the 15 car out, and he'll rejoin. 22 car of Swice Joubert is just there behind him. The 15 car is Timothy Stanton, as Swice Joubert rejoins in P8.
That means that everybody has done a pit stop already. Riding on board with Leonardo Bakari. Let's have a look here and see what exactly happened. Came in very hot into turn number 1, and that back end just stepped away from him.
very tricky 90-degree right-hander is turn 1. Oh, Sway Schubert climbing over those sausage curbs. Not exactly what you want to do there. Sway sitting in that 8th position. Robbie Teens is in the pit lane. He's in P16. This is a replay of Engelbrecht in the 99 car. Going into the right-hander. Just losing it there. I think that could be turn 5, if I'm not mistaken.
It is possible that, yeah, that was turn of 5. But riding on board with your race leader, Mr. Luke Lucchesi, not putting a foot wrong in fact, he's gained time after that round of pit stops. He's now got 6.3 seconds between himself and Fari, who is also just ahead there by 9 seconds ahead of Michael Stephen.
Now Michael in that 3rd position. That's the man you see up front. Race driver SA and Pantera Racing, the Italian stallion. In P1, where he loves to be, Luke Lucchesi. Johan Fari in that 2nd position, 6.7 behind Lucchesi is Fari in the Monster Energy Dallara P217, and then 9 seconds behind Johan in 3rd position is car number 18, that is Michael Stephen, and then 6.5 seconds behind him in P4 is Willem Botha.
Yeah, Willem Botha out there in that 4th position. He's 9 seconds ahead of Jan Spalmers as he works his way into the second to last corner. He is 2 seconds ahead there of Peter Hubert in the Jordan colours. He's 16 seconds ahead of Timothy Stanton, who's out there in that 7th position. And he's being chased down by Sway Hubert, who is out there in 8th position, 11 seconds down the road. And Raymond Duggan doing a bit of gardening out there once again.
Yeah, sitting in that 14th position, but we were with Sways that sits in P8. Rainier Hubert is in that 9th position. And Rainier is right there. As a matter of fact, he's just in there behind the 22 of Sways. There's only 1.3 seconds between the two of them. And that is a fight there for P8 and 9 that you see on the screen heading down into turn 1.
Yeah, into turn 1 they go. But Willem Pienaar works his way out of the final corner, starts his lap. He's in that 10th position. He is a full 20 seconds ahead of Jaco Steyn, who's out there in 11th position in car number 88.
Lenara Bakari sitting in that 14th position. He's not far from the guy ahead of him. This is Raymond Duggan putting a move there on Bakari. Lenara Bakari just getting out the way. In that number 4 car, you can see the Italian colors on that Dallara of Bakari, sitting in P14.
So there we go. Look at the gains and losses. Luke Lucchesi starting on the front row of the grid on the outside to the front, and Johan Fari starting in pole. That's dropped down 1 position. Michael Stephen, 2nd row on the outside, moving up to 3rd. Willem Botha, 2nd row on the inside, moving down to that 4th position. Jan Spalmers on the outside of row number 3, and he now finds himself up into that 5th position, and also 1 change from Peter Hubert.
Leonardo Bakari making a bit of a mistake there, coming into the third to last corner rather, turn number 12, as your race leader comes into view. Luke Lucchesi chasing down Leonardo Bakari.
Yeah, Bakari in that number 4 car, and right up against the wall, and just overdoes it in the tail end, stepping out of that number 4 machine of his. There you see your leader come through. He's put a lap there on Willem Pienaar that sits there in that 10th position in car 57, and then Bakari is behind Pienaar, so all been lapped there by Luke Lucchesi, your man that's now 5.5 seconds ahead of that man you see on screen, Johan Fari.
Yeah, that man Johan Fari is a further 8.9 seconds ahead of this man, Michael Stephen, in that 3rd position, who in turn is 7.9, almost 8 seconds ahead of Willem Botha.
Jan Spalmers in P8, 9.7, nearly 10 seconds behind Botha is that man you see there in car number 8, Jan Spalmers, and he is fighting with Peter Hubert. It's just under 1.5 seconds between Sparmers and Hubert for that 5th position. So that's about the only real fight out here. This is Swayze Hubert going into turn 5 and 6 and losing the tail end there before you go onto that back straight.
Oh, Swayze Hubert also having a bit of a hard time out there in the Dallara this evening in a